So when we come on to the So You're in Sales podcast to have a conversation about brewery merchandise,
yeah,
one of the things that we want everyone to understand is if your local hometown brewer doesn't have any merch right now, there is a reason for that. However, what Jeremy and I really want to talk about today has to do with the brewery space and sort of some of the bear traps that we've seen brewers fall into when it comes to trying to manage this category. Because, Jeremy, I'm going to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about your background in this market. But, when it comes to brewers and the equation, I have a hypothesis. So before we let you explain why you would be credible to answer this question, the question that I'm curious about is, I believe there is a magic number that is the optimal percent of annual revenue that a brewer should realize from merchandise sales. So if
that should be a part of his yearly revenue. Is that what you're saying?
So if I'm $1 million brewer, which big, small, whatever that is, what percent in your mind do you believe should be a reasonable percentage for a local brewer to want to target as the percent of their overall revenue when it comes to merchandise sales? So riddle me this, Batman. Is it safe? Is it ambitious? Is it erroneous to think that a brewer could generate 10% of their total revenue in merchandise sales?
I think that's even conservative. If done right, though, that's I think what we end up talking about offline. Usually it's like, people see the value in it. A lot of them just see, well, you just need to have a merch store. That's what every brewery does nowadays. But I know that at least with some of my clients, it could be up to 25%.
There you go.
Especially when it's just the tap room. Not everyone has distribution, in retail.
Right.
The tap room is the only form of revenue. And because of the capacity, even before COVID, of how many people you can fit in there versus how much they drink, there's a ceiling to it. And with merchandise, there's no ceiling. It doesn't matter if you're in this small little venue, downtown, you have a cool spot, but at the end of the day, you can only fit so many people in there. And with the space, how can you use technology to get more sales? Not enough people. And I could go on a rant for a while on not having a proper web store as a brewery. There's so much competition nowadays. It's like, how you're just relying on your merch just for people who come in, which is cool. They want a souvenir, but how many breweries are in your area? And then how many breweries are in, your state, and how many people in the vicinity of where you're living? You're going to have your locals, but people that are traveling to come visit you is going to be limited as more breweries open or someone down the street. And so I'm like, you have your brick and mortar, go reverse. Now you're going to have your web store, which can touch everybody. And as long as you're doing your job on social media and building a following, people don't even have to be in your state or come to your brewery to give you money.
That's true.
Say that to yourself, like, how can I get people that have never stepped foot in my brick and mortar, that have never came and tried our beers, can give me their money?
Right.
And I know it's there's a lot of brand to that, but I just don't understand. I thought COVID would change people's perception, and it hasn't in a lot of stances. A lot of people are doing a great job doing it, but it's all between. Me and you are professionals in this world, and we have to take our magnifying glass out and find those people that are doing it. It's not obvious. It's not, oh, everyone has this merch store set up, ready to go. I follow all these people on the East Coast, and I'll never try their beer, I'm sure, but I love the brand that they're building. I love their design. I love their culture. And yeah, people aren't utilizing it enough. So most people, it's probably under 5%. Stone has their own social media account just for merchandise. Yes, they've grown, but they started small and local in San Diego, right?
Yep.
San Diego, right? I think. But you know, all you have to do is look at them, and they don't need it. They're selling enough beer that they don't necessarily need the merchandise. They do it. Yes, the bottom line helps too, but their brand building. That's what people don't see. They just see the dollars, but they don't see the brand building that people have created. You know, there's people making great beers, or better beers than some of these big guys. But you know, you just look at the cult that Pabst has had, you know, over 20 years. I don't drink that anymore. I'm not 20, but you know, they've done a great job in who they partner with for their merchandise. I actually supply them a few items, but they're a full-blown agency just for Pabst. Yeah. And it's awesome, you know, the reach that they've had. But even on a small scale, man, especially if you're a home brewer that goes into like a brick and mortar, merch is a must.
Merch is a must. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, speak to the people about your business and where your focus is and why your opinion on this topic when it comes to breweries might be worth people listening to.
Yeah. So I started Amber, my main company, in 2008. I've come from the retail and the fashion space. I toured with rock bands selling merch on the road for 10 years, you know, big arenas, a lot of volume of merch that we're moving, and really got to see the live event, the emotional connection to merchandise, not just to buy a product, but why they chose that product, you know, at this concert. You know, a lot of people get buyer's remorse, I think. And so being able to see a lot of that, of the emotional connection with merchandise. And so as I was building up my clientele, you know, you always start local for the most part, unless you're trying to do a custom ink thing that's solely based on the web. Is I had a local burger joint, and we would go in there. They were walking distance from our office, and you know, we just became regulars to them, obviously quietly judging their merchandise. But again, if you're not coming with like trust and credibility, that they probably get hit up 10, 15 times a month. Hey, I can print your shirts. I can print your shirts. And so as we built up that trust, we threw it in what we do, you know, and we would love to help you increase, because the same stack of t-shirts, it was a white print of a schematic of their building printed on 8 different colors of Gildan shirts. And to the GM, I'm like, hey, that looks like the same stack of t-shirts when I came in here. Is that like fresh, or have you sold through it and this is a new batch? And he's like, no, they don't move very well. And I'm like, so you make the employees wear them, but you're not selling any of them. And they're like, we're trying, but no one's buying them. And so that opened it up to let them show us, because what I've tried to build is I want to come from the fashion and retail world, right? Not manufacturing. Anybody can get a t-shirt made, but it goes beyond that. And so they started off with one restaurant, and they started growing, and they started branching off. And then other restaurants in town knew the proprietor. He was a former head chef at another restaurant chain. And so they started telling everybody. And the great thing for the food and beverage industry is that the whole environment is built around having fun, you know, socializing, drinking. Some people are doing it to sulk, but for the most part, people are doing it, you know, for the community and for the social aspect of it. And so the menu types, the names of the beer, you know, all these different elements that would make for great merchandise. And so when we started building and focusing on that, we went from, you know, maybe 8 local restaurants to about 80 venues in just a couple years, because I branched out Amber, who had a lot different clientele than that industry. And I started Pub and Grub Creative. And again, it's the same thing, but it was focused on the food and beverage industry solely because they have very different needs than a corporate client. And, we know our industry's overrun with people that can print a shirt. And so there's always going to be someone that gets in and helps him make the merch, but no one is really holding their hand beyond that. And so I really wanted to focus on the food and beverage space just because, I love the industry. I worked in the service industry. I was a cook, I wanted to go to culinary school, and it's kind of weird. It took me 25 years to kind of get back to those childhood, loves, I guess. And so I would hire teammates that used to work in they were a waiter, or they worked behind the kitchen to service these people. And we wanted to focus on your employee and staff uniforms or staff outfits. I don't like to say uniforms, but your employees are the walking billboard of your business. They represent you, just like your website is on brand with hopefully your right colors and logos, and you had a real professional build that website. When it comes to merchandise, it's just a free-for-all. It's the Wild West, thinking that, Johnny at the bar, who's a regular, he thought that was funny, or he liked that idea, which, I'm not holding, Johnny accountable for not knowing what he's talking about, but being able to work with professional design teams, it's always, hey, do my restaurant logo or my brewery logo. But when you go beyond the logo stuff to the lifestyle, that is what you see especially in the brewery space. It's the lifestyle of, at least here in Colorado, outdoorsy, dog lovers, animal lovers. Colorado is just very, people are active. Volleyball, even cornhole is a real sport here,
especially at breweries.
Exactly. And so I really wanted to focus on how can we use the employee staff to generate the merchandise retail sales, and then how does all of it integrate into your digital marketing and your live event strategy? Because different events require different merch. Yes, you can sell the same things, but it's a very different audience. It's not everyone's created equal, because if your employees don't like the merchandise, they're not going to go out of their way to sell it, especially if they're not getting, paid on it. Right. It's not necessarily adding up on their tips. And so if they're not stoked about it, if they're not comfortable wearing it, then it's going to go down. You're not going to sell as much because the people aren't going to see that passion. But when people are rocking that shirt and they love it, and you can tell that they're not wearing this because they have to, it's comfortable, right? It's a nice shirt. It's soft. And so that's really where I wanted to build up. And my buddies, a couple of them own breweries, and he's not in charge of the merchandise. Someone else was, but I've watched him where we started, 6 years ago, and then where their merch is today. And it's non-existent. I don't see it on social media. I don't see people on social media that tag them wearing it.
Right.
And again, it's when you're price driven, when you're, hey, my buddy prints, and you don't treat it like you do buying the best brewery equipment, the best hops, when you're not thinking about all that whole process and merch becomes an afterthought, then that's when you're stuck with inventory. That's when you're just, yeah, we sell well, but what does that even mean? Right. When people say, yeah, we do well, but it's like, how do you do better? How can you sell more? And again, not rely, especially if there's a pandemic again, it's how do you help yourself stay open? I saw so many people go out of business. A big brewery right down the street, they just got, too haughty, and they spread out too much in retail, and COVID crushed them, and they're no longer here. So that was kind of my passion. How can I help them not only build their brand, because most restaurants and breweries, their logo's okay. People are starting to get it, but it's, hey, one of our employees is a designer, and we're going to get a free logo out of it, which is fine to start off. But when you're trying to scale, when you're trying to expand and take someone else's market share. You know, I know that people are constantly drinking, but you know, there's a limited local space for so many breweries. And how are you going to stand out not only the next few years, but the test of time? And so that's the fun part of what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in Michigan, similar to Colorado, we have 330 craft breweries.
Wow.
And you can travel the interstates around our mitten state, and there is those exit signs that tell you how many gas stations, how many restaurants, and now how many breweries.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And legitimately, on many of our stretches of highway, every exit has its own brewery, right? So for those of you who are listening to this conversation who give no shit about beer whatsoever, what I want you to recognize is this conversation, while it is specific to breweries, it's no different than your competition in your business. You're faced with a lot of competitors, and there's only one low-cost provider.
Mhm.
So you have to take advantage of the goodwill that you're capable of generating with the people who consume what it is that you sell, to the point that they're willing to go out into the street and say to people, Jeremy, have you been to Brewery Becker? They make some of the most historically important brews that no other brewery in our entire state makes. And wouldn't it be great if there was a way for us to show other people our allegiance to that brand? Because to me, this is a lot like being a music fan. If you like Pearl Jam, if you like J. Cole, if you like whomever, you're going to probably wear something of that artist if you like them enough. But for the real fans of that artist, it's down to a record level. So I'll wear the t-shirt or the hat from the particular CD that's been put out or Spotify release that's happened, because I want other people who are fans of that band to not only recognize that I too am a fan of that band, but there's a very specific album that I am a really big fan of, much like an IPA, a porter, a
Yeah.
chocolate stout. Like, if I see you walking down the street with an Arbor Brewing Company Strawberry Blonde t-shirt, that means something completely different than if you're walking down the street with a Buzzsaw IPA t-shirt. Those are very different beers.
Yes.
And so consequently, Strawberry Blonde has a love-hate relationship with a lot of consumers. Everyone loves Buzzsaw IPA. So if I see you in a Strawberry Blonde t-shirt, much like if I saw you in a Pearl Jam 10 t-shirt, it changes the context of the kind of conversation we might have. Part two of that.
Absolutely.
Pandemic. All right.
Yeah.
You, I, everyone in the community that likes to support the businesses that serve us, we're shut out, other than maybe a gift card purchase or buying some Grubhub or something.
Yeah.
But imagine if we had an opportunity to support you through merchandise sales where we never even needed to come see you because we could have bought it online and had it shipped to your place.
Yep.
So again, to go back to this competitive differentiation strategy, how do we create an opportunity for us to set our brand apart from the other 329 that are in this state? There are a number of ways to do it. But what you and I both think is this: is it 5% of rev? Is it 10% of rev? Is it 25% of rev? Is really where I want to focus the conversation, because let's figure out what the number really is, so that when we get to what you said happens oftentimes is, yeah, I've got that covered. Okay, well, how are you stacking up against what we've established as everyone agrees that 10%, if that's what it turns out to be, is where you should be? Because maybe you don't think you need to change anything if you're not measuring what your results are in comparison to some benchmark whatsoever. Okay, so we're going to close the lid on that part of it. Now we're going to talk about the real excuse. And this is what we're going to title this podcast.
Okay.
I just want to make the damn beer, Jeremy. That's all. I just want to make the beer. Why is that a mistake?
Well, you don't just make the beer. Who, for the most part, just like where we're the curators of the merchandise. We find the sources, the products, the design, the logistics. And a lot of us, we're not physically touching anything. Just like, I mean, they're physically touching it, but they don't make the beer without the people who make all the other ingredients.
Right.
And again, their beer would be mediocre if they treated their supplies and their equipment like they do merchandise of, oh, we got it, you know, that's too expensive. Or, you know, they have this very, and I know it's small business, you know, you have to be frugal to a point, but being frugal on the right things. Merchandise is the beer is pissed out in an hour, right? Yeah, I mean, sorry to get crude, but like your core product, while it tastes good, it's gone in an instant. The merchandise is the only thing that you can take from that brewery to keep supporting that brewery. I think that's right. I just want to make the beer, but then what? Yeah. Who's going to do the merchandise? You know, again, we can't align ourselves with people who don't see the value in merchandise. We want to nudge them in the right direction. At the end of the day, one thing I've learned is like, I'm done convincing people. If you don't see the value in it, I'm not going to waste my breath like I have the last, 12 years telling people that this is what they need to believe. And so that is the start of it. If they don't care, and you can see it, it's not just about merch. You can see it in their lack of social media, their lack of structure and brand experience when you go to their tap room. A lot of people, again, they start as plumbers and then they start a plumbing business, same, home brewers, or they have someone who has the money who wants to invest and they want to make beer. Cool. So a lot of people have no experience in the merchandise realm, but what more of a reason to have, right, that partner that is going to help you. Like there's a lot of brewery merch companies out there. It's huge now. I was doing brewery merch years ago just because we have that much more microbrew scene here in Colorado.
Sure.
But now everyone, even big players, are getting into it. But again, it's more than just creating the product. That is the only thing. If you can make the best beer, but if you're not canning it right or bottling it, if you're not getting the distributorship, if you're not paying all those fees that it takes to get on the shelf, then no one's going to know about your good beer. And that's where I kind of liken merchandise. It's not only about getting it made, because again, you can have the best merch. And if you're not selling it, actively selling it, that's the other thing. Building it and they will come. It doesn't exist with merchandise.
Right.
No one needs another t-shirt. No one needs another koozie, right? But what is going to get them to like yours and buy yours and support yours? Again, it's not just about that initial purchase of you buy a bottle opener, cool, and we're done. It's that bottle. Where are you going to use that bottle opener? You're going to go camping with your friends with that bottle opener. You're going to be popping beers at a party with that bottle opener. And so it's just, the thing is like, are you truly thinking about your merchandise program like the other parts of your business? Instead of just, let's get merch made, let's put it out there, let's sell it. Well, then that's cool. But I mean, I don't hear any strategy happening as far as this is how we're going to get to that 20% of our revenue if they're like tap house specific.
Right.
If they're,
And sometimes in the conversation, what you really sense is there's a pent up urgency to want to do it. But if I've been burned in the past, then maybe I'm a little less reluctant to be willing to take the leap again, because I don't, more so than ever with what's going on in, breweries and restaurants, there's nobody to wait tables. There's customers are challenged, coming in. So how could I avoid some of those potential problems that have burned me in the past? What are some of the ways that, because you and I both know there's ways to get around it. So from your perspective, if we were going to leave one of those nuggets with someone who's listening to say, like, you don't have to necessarily get burned the way you did in the past.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a bad beer in the past, but that doesn't stop me from drinking beer. I mean, even whoever we're talking to, they've made some messed up beers, or they finagled the ingredients because it wasn't coming out right. But that doesn't that hasn't stopped your people from coming back and having that. Maybe some, and they'll give you a bad review, but you know, hopefully that's few and far between. You know, I think when you lay it out to the owners of not only the, you know, yes, you have to invest costs. You don't get anything without investing in that. One thing I have seen is like a lot of the burn has either been people have bought like overseas products, you know, buying these full custom overseas, which is great. But the timeline, the amount of money invested in it without even having that market that really wants it, all because you can doesn't mean you should. So if you're trying to make this all over button up when most of the people coming in your brewery are just wearing t-shirts, you know, they're literally bikers,
right?
Road bikers or mountain bikers. If they're not wearing those products you're selling, then you are going to be stuck with it. And so a lot of it is not even what product is getting made. That can be this back conversation. It's something about digging deeper of what is your goal with your brewery? Do you want to be small and local and that's where you're happy with? Cool. Because then there's a different approach to that. But if you're telling me that you want to be this distributed brewery all throughout at least your state, you know, I know it complicates things as you go past state lines, but within your state, the only way you're going to get there is to build brand and build that grassroots audience. Again, it's not just social. It's not just, you know, it's not just the tap room. It's not just live events. Like it's all of it. You have to do all of it and do it with excellence if you want to get to that point. And so showing them here is, and again, I like to use Stone because they get it. Again, I know they have the money and the investment, but it's not about how much and what they're doing. It's that they're taking the effort and the value of merchandise and how it's expanded with, you know, not everyone can do a logoed something, but Stone can because they have a wicked logo, you know, it's something that people would wear, not even knowing if it's associated with beer or even a company. They just like the design. And so I think showing them on the branding side and on the marketing side and how are you gaining new customers, you know, the digital strategy plus merch, just add merch to a lot of that, even if they're doing it badly now. If they just tweak a couple things with their strategy, that is just going to get more sales no matter what. Yep. Oh, you can use a hang tag to use a QR code to send people to the web store. And now you have a web visitor and a brick and mortar visitor, you know, and then when your friends come
an email address that we captured in that process that now we can start marketing to you through email.
Yep.
All that stuff but again, to your point, it's like these things are faceted. So even if you just started with one and said like, I'm going to be bad at it, but I'm going to start because I know I'm going to get good at it. I'm going to make a plug for you and guys like you. So I would say, skip the next t-shirt purchase and spend the money with the designer to come up with a handful of really awesome designs and then put them in front of your clientele and let them tell you which one of the ones that you've spent money on would be the one that they would spend money to buy a t-shirt or a hat from. You can actually create an e-commerce strategy where you don't buy anything up front and you allow your community of people who would be your consumers to pick what they would spend money on. Then you execute the transaction. You don't have much in the way of excess in that instance. And oh, by the way, maybe you outfit some of your staff in some of those exact same products so you can combine the purchase of what everybody from your consumer base bought with what your staff purchase would be to help drive the cost down of the total order to help drive more profit for the sales that you make. Your whole discussion about if you're allowing your wait staff to share in the love on when a product gets sold, imagine how much more product gets sold when people are going to get paid to do it.
Just like they do appetizers or snacks at a brew, you know, if they're not selling food in-house, giving them a little bit of the love, saying based on our today's merch sales, the collective tip out is going to be X% of our merch sales.
Yep.
There's the one thing you can tweak to grow sales absolutely tomorrow. It's crazy. And again, this is the problem. Are you going to a printer, or do you have a partner? A printer is not going to be your eyes in front of you and behind you, above you. They're going to be there when you need them, which is, I need new t-shirts. But once they give you that t-shirt, it's done. They don't have the capacity to hold your hand and give you these nuggets of free goodness that you don't pay them for.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the one thing that I really like to show them is like, the only way you are going to have this strategy long term is to work with a professional, not a professional merch maker, a professional salesperson that is going to help you increase that. Because again, most likely a printer, they just need to keep those things churning. So whether it's your order or the next person's order, they don't care. They just need to fill that time. And that's, so now you're in sales with merchandise. Now you have merchandise. Now what? You have merchandise. Okay, great. But that's most people's goal. Let's just get through and make merchandise. It doesn't, everyone says they want to make money, but they're not doing anything to push it.
Yeah.
And again, you have to push it. There's plenty of crappy brands out there that are killing it because they understand how to market it and how to build that community. There's so many, a cool design that no one sees. Is it that cool? You have to get it into the hands of people. Like you were going to say, LinkedIn polls, Facebook polls, Instagram polls, type form surveys through your email newsletter. Ask. If you don't know what people want and you can't figure it out, then ask them what they want. And you're going to get 1,000 answers, but there's going to be a commonality, right? That your demographic, your core demographic is going to have similar tastes. And it could be something you don't even have a clue. And when I tell my customers, I tell them, I know the marketplace. I know retail because all of the people that are coming to your venue shop at the same places. I study the market. I see what's coming down the line. I know demographics, but you, the brewery or the restaurant, those people that come in day in, day out. Is it older alcoholics that, that they have no fashion sense, or they don't even care? If you gave it to them for free, they would wear it because that's that generation. Or is it young hipsters that care about what they look like, or frat, college students? Just knowing that is going to have a different approach. And again, it's not just all merch is created equal. No. Every demographic. And as you get to know your audience, everything is going to be a hit. Not everything, probably 80-20, right? You're going to have your cores, but it's building the merchandise. It's how to distribute it. It's how to market it, and how to just keep that snowball effect going. The flywheel, I guess, right? Yep. Is you want it to self-generate that, but you have to give it effort. And if you're not giving an effort, then you're going to have that story of it's just sitting on the shelves, or I've been burned. Because again, great merch that no one knows about is not great.
Great merch that no one knows about is still better than bad merch overall. So
let's
get them.
I don't want to get my pinky up too much on this. You know how I roll, and I'm very vocal about my taste with design. But again, people need to start somewhere, and that's where I want people to see is that you might not be able to afford all of this or all of that, but you have to pay attention. And then again, you have to have the taste level. Not only the brewer has the taste for the beer, the merch company should have the taste for the merch. And again, it's not just about creating that product and setting up an e-store.
No, God, no.
It has to be, the design is the first thing anyone's going to see, whether they're at your brick and mortar or online. If they don't resonate with that design, maybe they might buy one logo shirt, but then they'll never purchase again. But as they have the logo shirt, and then they have the stout shirt, and then they have this, funny hazy IPA that, is only seasonal, and that you create a shirt to promote that beer, it's not going to get any better. You'll have a steady amount of sales, but again, what is your goal? If you don't really care at the end of the day, then we're not for you. You can go to your local printer. That's fine. Right. but we're hopefully the people on your podcast that are involved in this industry, they're wanting to get better. They want to have that competitive advantage, and it's not your beer.
I mean, it is a little bit, but
Sure.
But here, Jeremy, this is
most people aren't connoisseurs, that they're not going to tell the difference. They'll order IPA no matter if they go to a dive bar or this brewery, right?
That's
so
true.
It's like, what is really pulling people in? It's the community, it's the environment, it's the aesthetic, it's just the brand that you're building that people get excited about.
Yeah, I mean, in my county alone, there are 15 breweries. So
it's amazing.
In a 5-mile radius of my house, I have 15 choices in addition to the restaurants that I could go to. So how am I going to pick? And here's the 2 words to me. If the words merch drop mean something to you, then this is something that's going to make sense to you, because when you get people excited about the fact that the new round of merch is about to come out, usually in the community of people who are excited, like, it's palpable. You can feel like, oh my God, there's about to be a merch drop. I can't wait for this, right?
Yep.
You pepper in a couple limited edition things that are very few quantities. You do a collaboration with someone that has name recognition, who does a design for you from your local community that now people recognize that shirt from that designer. Partner with a nonprofit and give away all of the proceeds of that shirt sale to the nonprofit. I mean, there's so many ways to do this.
Yeah, hype up the release of that beer on a Saturday, and you can have a live printing there with, like, make this experience of not just coming in, I order my beer and I sit down, like, make it interactive. Again, for breweries, it's going to be people telling people. You can put ads in the paper as much as you want, but it's going to come down to people telling others about this place and bringing their friends there, and then it spreads like that. But yeah, you have to be excited about it all, for your consumer to be excited. If you treat it with no respect, they're not going to care. They're going to see that it's an afterthought, not a forethought.
Right. So the slogan that we use is, you make the beer, we'll make the merch. And to me, like, it's the beautiful marriage, but just like every other industry that we do business with, you have to have some intentionality. You have to have a plan. You have to have a partner that you trust, and you have to have an idea of what you're going to do when the stuff actually shows up. And just unboxing it and being excited about it, I can assure you, is not enough.
How do you get out there to help share just those little tweaks of, hey, my eyes are fresh when I come to your business. How can I help you? You tell me your problems, and I probably have an answer for them, because I'm not in the weeds trying to deal with this and manage employees and taxes and COVID and all of this, the supply chain with even just probably with, hops and glassware, as we know.
Right.
And so, like, who's this person that's going to help me? And I think the only way that's going to happen is, again, social media, people passing this podcast on to others. Again, they might not be your audience all the time, but this little, podcast could help them just wherever they're at. And that's what I think. I even go on podcasts anymore and like interviews, is the more I get out there, the more possibility of people hearing these little things, that, because I'm so passionate about merchandise, you're so passionate, Roger, and how do we spread that to people? And yes, we would love to service them someday, but if not, if you're here to help breweries make better merch, then do it in every way possible, because me and you can only service so many people around the country. So here we are. Let's spread this nationwide.
Well, and my slogan is shared by a legion of people within our industry, which is no more brand fill, no more shitty merch, no more stuff that you bought that's in a closet that you feel bad about. Let's get out of that practice. Let's get ourselves to a place where, if you're going to make the investment, let's make it be one that actually can be something that you can be proud of. Because to me, I think, and I've been told by this by a number of my friends in the brewery industry, when they see someone on the street walking around with some of their gear on, it's like hearing your song on a radio.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Absolutely.
So I think we'll leave it there. I think, we've got, if they haven't don't believe us by now, I don't think we're going to convince them. So concludes the audio portion of the So You're in Sales podcast. So bonus content.
Ding,
Thanks,
ding, ding.
thanks to Carrie Keister and Social Good Promotions, who pays for my video platform to allow me the opportunity to have these kinds of interviews with smart people like Jeremy. Jeremy gets the opportunity to ask me a question, and I don't know what you're going to ask me. So yikes.
Yeah, I mean, I want a two-parter.
Okay, that's cool.
Number one, what gets you up in the morning that makes you so passionate about what you do for a living?
Okay.
What is that day to day, or, I think just drive that makes you just so joyous? I'm sure you have bad days, but for the most part, we get to, you're so pumped up about what you do. What is that driver behind all that?
Do you want to ask me them both so I know what both of them are? Or you just want me to answer that one first, and then you'll ask me the next one?
Yeah, because answer this one, because the part B might be tweaked a little bit based on what you say.
Got it. So I have a vision of my future, and I've gone so far as to have told the people who work with me when I'm going to retire and what I want it to look like when it happens. And if I'm successful doing that, there will be a very sizable employee base at our organization that on the day I retire, we're hoping to make a meaningful transition of the ownership of that company to its employees. And I would love that those employees come from underserved communities like the one that I grew up in, so that I could show other people who came from a similar background as mine that there is a way out of this, and that you can, with determination and hard work and the right surroundings
and attitude,
change your environment, right? And I'm fortunate in a lot of ways, in the ways that I was blessed to give myself the best opportunity possible to escape that situation. However, what I recognize is in situations like that, the thing that people are robbed of more frequently than any other material possession is their hope. And if we can create a situation where people can have their hope back because they see an avenue towards a brighter future, if I can make that be part of what I'm trying to accomplish, every dollar I sell gets me closer to that objective. And so it is work and it is hard, and we are struggling with the supply chain, but it doesn't matter because we're going to achieve what it is our vision is, regardless of all of those roadblocks that are in the way, because that's what we're here to do. And so whether it's a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 or 10 years from now, knowing that every successful connection that I make with someone who will spend money with us only fuels that future, I'm sure you can imagine why that would give me the passion that I have for what it is I'm trying to do.
Heck
And
yeah.
then knowing that, like, we just did an impact report for Social Good Promotions for the year 2021. And we were able to, one, source over 70% of the products that we bought from factories that have some defensible ESG, CSR, I'll write down what those mean if you don't know what that means, strategy, where we're trying to make the world a better place. And we're trying to work with businesses that are trying to do the same thing and hopefully find customers who want to do the exact same thing. So we've created this Brewers for Good campaign where we're literally going out and trying to find the brewers that have the same brand values as we do and really put our efforts behind supporting them first. Because if you're a brewery that's supporting the community, I want to support you. And what I know is if the community sees you investing in it in that way, those are the people who are going to want to wear your merch more than anybody else. And so why not give you the opportunity then to give them the chance to not only wear your product out in the marketplace, but when someone says, hey, that's a really neat shirt, you'd be like, oh my God, let me tell you about this brewery and how amazing they are and all the cool things they do for their community. That's literally the tribe that we're trying to create, both on the client side and on the potential employee side.
That's awesome, Roger. As you were talking, I noticed you said very little about merchandise, which again, I love because merchandise is your vehicle to help with that, but your the why and the cause behind that is much more grand. And that's, again, that's what aligning yourself with people that value those things. You are self-aware enough to know all of that, to know what you want, and that's the important thing. And swimming upstream, you're not just trying to make a widget, right? You could set up a web store and not have to talk to humans, but
Right.
obviously you can tell that's not what you do. And so I really love that what your driving force isn't necessarily just the merchandise. The merchandise is part of that, and what you believe, that not just believe, that that's what's going to help people get to certain opportunities. So I love that. And then retiring, you don't strike me as a guy who's just going to check out when you retire. What do you, again, money, whatever aside, what is that thing that you would love to do once you retire, for a hobby, or, for just keeping busy so you don't rot away?
Old salespeople know something that young salespeople don't know. And that's, when you're young, you get paid for what you do. And when you're old, you try to get paid for what you know. And I'm reaching the stage in my career where I'm starting to want to get paid for what I know, so that it's less about like, how many sales calls did I make today? How much money is in my pipeline? Where are we in the close ratio opportunity with that particular account? Like all of those things that are the mechanics of sales. I've been in sales for so long, that's all second nature to me. So I'm more interested in, how can I now take all of that accumulated knowledge that predates the internet? And I know for a lot of people, when I say that, they're like, then you're a dinosaur and what you think and say doesn't really matter. But the fundamentals of selling are taking a prospect and turning them into a customer. And that has never been more difficult in life, because the client doesn't want you involved as the salesperson. They want to keep you out of that for as long as they possibly can, which is really at the crux of what we're talking about with this clientele that we're addressing in this podcast, is exactly what the brewers do. They don't want to talk to a salesperson ever.
No.
And because of that, they miss out on all of this expertise and opportunity that they would have otherwise if they would just dedicate some of their time to learning from the people who have the opportunity and the willingness to share what they know with them. So, I wrote a book. I've given a number of presentations on the underlying premise of marketing with purpose. I really would love nothing better than to have a professional speaking career at the end where I go around and share that knowledge with people who would be willing to hear it. And if it means that I can live in this brewery, distillery, craft winery lane, that's the stuff I love the most. So when you take what you know and what you love and jam it all together, I could work for the rest of my life and be happy doing it.
It's awesome. No, thanks for sharing. And I think that's, me and you, we vibe on that, on the brewery side. Again, my mission in life is, I want to people make better merchandise, whether it's my clients or I've tried to focus on people within our industry, versus, people that are the buyers of our industry. And that's we're both doing completely, at least long-term visions. I mean, I want to speak, but for some reason, I like sharing with other industry creatives and owners. And so, but for you being on the people side and me being on the peer side, we're still having that same vision of, how can breweries, and we even know, we don't even have to be super humble all the time, because we do know that key of how to go beyond a product and turn it, into turn patrons into fans. And so that's the part that the more me and you are spreading our own little words here and there. You're in Michigan, I'm in Colorado, and there's a lot of area around us. So, thanks for having me. And we could talk about this for hours, but we have orders to fulfill. So.
Right. Well, I'll just leave it at that, man. The last thing I wanted to say is, This is literally the first time ever that I crowdsourced a guest. So thank you for that.
Yes.
It was fun to sort of tell the world, hey, like I don't have a guest yet. And guys like you raised your hand and said, hey, I got stuff to talk about. So let's get this together. So I appreciate you being willing to do that.
Of
And
course. Thanks for having me.
you did it like you always do it, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Roger.
Take care.